Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. It's Saturday morning and it's story time again. So I'm going to be reading out 3 viewer stories that have been sent in to me, but there is a couple of things I need to speak to you before we get into the stories this morning. So first of all, the upload today is a little bit shorter. The reason for that is that I've had to delete one of the stories and replace it quite quickly. When I edit stories and then they're prepared for upload, I always write to each individual who sends in the story and says, I'm going to be reading out your story on next week on this date. And what happens sometimes is I have to edit the stories. Some of the words are not compatible for YouTube, or the story isn't quite right for YouTube, so I don't actually change the stories, but I'll change some of the word. And a great example of that is when I use the word aerobics to replace for something else. You'll know what that means if you're a regular viewer. Now this particular guy sent in a story that had a subject matter in it that YouTube won't accept. They won't let us talk about this. Tim Newton calls it broccoli, so I think you'll know what I mean. And I changed the story for the setting from a shop to a bar. I told the guy about it and he didn't like it. He said it'd be trashy, and I don't know. I mean, the story was really good, and when I read it back it was good, but he asked me to delete it, so I've now deleted it. What I've had to do is replace that very, very quickly with another story, but unfortunately it's quite a bit shorter than the story he'd submitted. So the upload is probably about 20 minutes today. We'll see at the end. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, if you're a regular again, you'll know I put out a poll because I've changed the format over the last couple of weeks. So for the last 4 years reading stories, I've just sat here looking at the camera with a nice background like a waterfall or a nice sunny beach, something like that. And I've changed the format now. I reduce myself down into the corner of the video and I play a video, so you've got something interesting to look at. There were 1 or 2 people who wrote and said, oh, I don't like this new format, it distracts me, I have to put the phone on the side. And I was seriously thinking about going back, so I did the poll asking the question, do you prefer the old format or the new current format? So I've got the results in, so I thought I'd share them with you today. So about 47% said that they don't care either way, whether it's the old way or the new way, so I can't count those votes, which leaves, what's that, 53%, something like that. And out of that 53%, 49% said they like the new format. So it's a very, very small number of people who've said they don't like the new format. So apologies to them people. I am going to go with the largest vote, which is to keep that format. Okay, so right, with all that being said, let's get into the first of 3 stories today.
สวัสดีค่ะ
I first come to Thailand when I was 32 and I am 51 now and have been living here for 14 years. I never planned to move to Thailand. I had 3 friends who were going out to Thailand and had recently split up with my girlfriend of 11 years. I decided to join them. The plan was Nana for one night and then down to Samui. We had a good friend who had a condo on Soi 6. He met us at the airport and we proceeded to Soi 4 and then to his condo on Soi 6. I could not believe my eyes from the taxi going down to Soi 4. We dumped our bags and were straight back onto Soi 4. First stop was Big Dogs and then Spanky's. Within 2 hours I was in the hotel with a smoking hot go-go-go. That's it, I was hooked. We partied until 4 a.m, straight back to my friend's condo, grabbed our bags and off to the airport for a 6:15 a.m. flight. We were all still a bit drunk but got through security with no issues. We flew with Bangkok Airways and there was a flight at 6 a.m. and 6:15 a.m. We boarded the flight and someone come to us and said we're in their seat. We had boarded the wrong aircraft and we were quickly ushered out to the 6:15 flight. 1 hour of good sleep and we were on Samui. The place looked like a picture postcard, even the airport. We had friends on the island, Kate and Mike. Kate was Scottish and her boyfriend was Mike. He was Thai. They had booked us into bungalows close to the Big Buddha. It was the quiet side of the island, but very nice. Our friends were staying in Chaweng in the party area of Samui, where we stayed, had a couple of beer bars, but not many. The Mermaid, where we were staying, also had a bar where we went on the first night. The staff were good and it was a nice place to chill. 2 of us were drinkers and the other 2 were soft drinks only. One of our friends who was in Chaweng asked if we required company. 2 of us said yes and the other 2 declined. It was pot luck, but I went for it anyway. The girls who arrived were very beautiful but did not like the bar. They decided to return to Chaweng, but said they would be back later. Maybe they were losing out on ladies' drinks, who knows. Two of us decided to leave the hotel bar and have a look into the girly bars. We did not expect the other two ladies to return due to it being a quiet location. The choice was not great, but there were a few diamonds in the rough. My friend grabbed the best one in the bar and I was stuck speaking to the cashier. She was pretty and spoke reasonable English. At that time, I could not speak Thai. When the bar closed, the cashier asked if I needed a run home on her motorbike. She took me to my accommodation and to my dismay, who did I see? The two girls from earlier. They may have had no luck in Chaweng. I told the cashier to do a U-turn and get us out of there, which she did, but we had been seen. I told her to take us somewhere for the night. The first night in Samui was in her room. The two other girls she shared with moved next door, so we had some fun on a mattress on the floor in the front room. After that, it became a regular thing with the cashier. She was a cashier, but obviously went with customers too. I would go to Chaweng in the afternoon to meet friends, drink and chill out, then drive back to Menam drunk, and the cashier would take me home for some more fun. I started to notice things entering my bungalow: toothbrush, spare pants and wash bag. I had been with a girl for 11 years in Scotland with a few playaways. I had only 3 weeks on Samui and wanted to play about and sample more of the available company, which I did. It was 2 years later on Samui. The cashier drove past me on her bike. She did a U-turn and we spoke for some time. She eventually moved to Sweden doing massage and probably other activities. The cashier never asked me for money, but I would give her 1,000 baht every day for her company. I remember it was 68 baht to a pound, so about 13 pounds in total. I decided to move to Chaweng. The drunken drives home had been risky and Chaweng was the party zone. I dated a lot of girls but was getting bored with the same conversations. I needed someone who I could have a laugh with and not just bedroom business. We used to drink in a regular bar and restaurant on Beach Road as we did not get pestered for ladies' drinks. Later, we would venture round to Soy Green Mango or Soy Reggae where the action was. One of the girls in the regular bar asked me if she could come with me to Soy Green Mango. She was friendly, fun and could speak good English. I believe she had a Farang boyfriend before. She worked until 2 a.m. every night, but Soy Green Mango was 24 hours. She would come up with a couple of friends from the regular bar, but in those days the drinks were so cheap we didn't even care. For a late night drink, it was the Jimi Hendrix bar, and I am still good friends with the DJ there. The lady from the regular bar would run me home every night, make sure I got in safely, and then leave. I would not have been fit for afters anyway. Then it happened. I got Delhi belly, 2 days in bed, one on electrolytes, 2:20 a.m. every morning this girl would visit me. She was a 7 out of 10 looks-wise, but her banter and conversation was 10 out of 10. I went home but kept in contact with her. Her job in the restaurant paid well. It was the busiest in Chaweng. Their tips would be shared throughout all the restaurant staff and would be more than their monthly salaries. I worked on the rigs in Scotland, so had regular holidays, so every 2 months I would visit Samui. I would play about, but eventually asked the lady from the regular bar to stay the night with me. She refused. The female Thai manager in the bar said she was keen, but the girls from the regular bar should not go with customers as it had caused issues in the past. She had a week's holiday and decided to go home. I thought this was the ideal opportunity to spend some free time with her. She lived in Chonburi and allowed me to visit during her time off. She lived in a small village and the people were great. I shared a room with her and it was very nice. By this time, I had decided to move to Thailand. I asked her to resign her job and she did. I would send her money equal to her salary that she had received previously in the bar. I did extra training and examinations to upgrade my work position. On arrival in Thailand during one of my trips, I received a message on LinkedIn. We have a position in Thailand. It was for 4 weeks and only 1 hour from my girlfriend's house. It lasted 17 weeks. I worked 6 days a week and made a decent salary. My original company were calling me, asking me to come back. I had already picked up a new position in Africa and had to tell my current company I would be resigning. By this time, we were married. The position in Africa was only 4 months and I ended up there for 10 years on a month-on-month off rotation. I stayed in the Thai family home during my time off. I visited Bangkok for 2 or 3 days, then to the village. In the house, there were 12 in-laws, not including myself, but only one toilet. I liked it, although toilet access was limited. There was a field behind the house, so it was kind of okay. I saved and saved, but never worried about spending money on enjoying ourselves, and we would party hard in Bangkok. In the village, I was lucky to spend £10 a day, including beer, smokes, and food. We bought 2 rai of land, which obviously I put in her name and built a house. You know foreigners can't buy land. If I had not lived in her family house rent-free for 9 years with the family, I would have been unable to build the house we live in now. I now have a nice house. I have 2 young nephews who live with us. We brought them up since they were babies as their mother and father were not looking after them properly. My stepdaughter is in the 4th year at university and we are happily married and support each other. I'm now 51 and my wife is 42. My big tip is don't marry a young girl. Firstly, what would you talk about? Avoid the party areas as there is too much temptation. Learn the language if you can. Understand Thai family life. Try to integrate. Don't raise your voice or fists. Remember, you are in their country and you are their guest. So great story there. It's good to have a success story for a change. Just shows you it can happen. And I presume the guy's still living in Thailand, very happy with his family. Right, let's jump straight into story number 2. Hey Peter, great channel. The stories really do keep me entertained while waiting for my next vacation in the land of smiles. I'd like to share a story from my first visit to Thailand back in 2016, right after turning 20. A friend who had been there earlier convinced me that Thailand was a must visit. We bought aircraft tickets within an hour of discussing it over drinks. Fast forward 3 months and we found ourselves in Bangkok full of excitement. However, our lack of experience led to some amusing adventures. We had just landed in Bangkok, excited as we could be. We dropped our luggage at our Airbnb and ran out of the condo in search of some fun. With no experience, once we jumped in a taxi, the first thing we told the driver was to take us somewhere to party, and to no surprise, the taxi driver's response was, "Huh?" We made hand motions like drinks and dancing as best as we could while seated, to which the driver then said, "Oh, boom boom." Making hand gestures, aerobics with the biggest smile on our faces, my friend and I looked at each other and said boom boom with perfect synchronization, almost as if it was rehearsed. Once the taxi stopped, we stepped out at the end of Soy Cowboy. I remember seeing the excitement in my friend's eyes, and I could only imagine as if we looked like kids at a candy shop. Anyway, we paid the driver and walked through the Soy. Not understanding the bar rules and fines, we had a few drinks at the bars and talked with the girls. I'm sure the girls didn't mind the young good-looking Canadians buying them drinks, and after thinking we got along with them, we asked them if they'd like to party at a nearby nightclub, to which we got the response, "Bar fine." Not knowing much about the culture, we decided to try our luck elsewhere, and after 3 bars and multiple bar fine responses, were somewhat frustrated and getting drunk now. Deciding to go for a walk, we encountered another taxi driver, and the first thing he said was, "Boom boom." It almost felt like we had got injected with Red Bull and suddenly felt a big boost of energy. After getting out of the taxi, we were standing in front of a nightclub and found ourselves walking into a sea of people dancing and enjoying the scene, thinking to ourselves, this is the type of place we want to hang out and party. We ordered a few drinks. I noticed a couple of pool tables, so I approached the people playing, asking if I could join in. 2 Thai guys were playing and I started talking to them as I like to socialise. The conversation was very basic, like where are you from, how long are you staying in Thailand for, you know, the sort of thing. Funny, we found out that the same 10 questions get asked over and over every time we spoke to Thais. It was almost like a rehearsed script. Anyway, the guys finished playing and it was my turn. At this time, I had a pretty good buzz. I must have had at least 6 to 7 drinks since the beginning of the night, and my confidence was quite inflated. I played around with one of the guys and won pretty quickly, putting the black ball in and winning the game, and the crowd around the table started cheering and boosting my confidence as well as my ego even more. Then the guy that just lost to me said, "Want to play one more?" I said, "Sure." And as we were setting the balls up again, he told me 100 baht. I was confused because I thought the pool table was for free, and I asked and said, "No, loser pay 100 baht." I was like, "Sure thing," thinking I'll get this guy to buy me a drink. We set the balls up. I had to break as I won the last game. I'm not joking, the entire game was over within 2 minutes. Once it was the guy's turn, he cleared the entire table without giving me a second shot. Realizing I got hustled, not scammed, I decided to join my friends on the dance floor, whom by this time my friend was dancing with a girl. I ordered a couple of more drinks, slammed them back. At this point I was really buzzed, almost to the point of being too drunk. I saw my friend kissing and making out with this girl. I thought I'd better go and find myself one too. I danced with a few, talked with a couple, even though the music was loud and with the language barrier. I seemed to have no luck as I didn't want to pay for play. Being young and very naive at the time, I didn't know that the majority of the girls in the club were there to make money and probably worked in bars and go-go clubs. They would come to the club looking for extra customers after their bars had closed. I pretty much treated them like I would a normal girl in my own country, which is why I wasn't having much luck. Of course, I know better now. At this point, I was really drunk and I knew not to have any more drinks. As I was walking back from the toilet to the dance floor, this girl sitting at the bar winked at me and our eyes caught each other, so I approached her and I tried to speak to her, even though I could not even hear her because of the loud music. It was at this point when my friend and his date approached us and said, "Let's go back to our Airbnb." What great timing, I thought to myself. As we were walking out, my friend's date said, "Wait, I need my jacket from the coat check." We found this odd, but whatever. Of course, at this point, we realised the service was not complimentary and my friend had to cough up another 200 baht. Anyways, he paid and we walked out, and at this point, I'm thinking about keeping myself to get together to perform at the Airbnb. As we were walking out, the cab drivers were yelling out jokes or perhaps insults in Thai and laughing. Being so drunk, I couldn't care less, but I wanted to find a 7-Eleven to get some water. We walked no more than 10 meters when my friend and his date were walking ahead, jumped this smallish puddle. My friend cleared it, but his date landed right in the middle, causing a big splash on my shoes and the girl I was with. I remember this part very clearly. Regardless of my drunken state, I looked at my brand new white trainers that I'd just bought before the trip and was quite disappointed at how dirty they had gotten. You know the things young people care about. Upon looking at my shoes, I looked at the girl's feet too to see if she'd gotten dirty, and to my shock, her feet were almost as big as mine. I wear size 12 US and I'm considered Bigfoot amongst my friends back home. Upon seeing her feet, I sobered up on the spot, realising other than the attempt of trying to talk to her at the club, I'd never actually spoke to her. I looked up and said, "What is your name?" And she was like gibbering something very quietly. Then I asked, "How old are you?" and got the same gibbering. Realising what was happening, I stopped and told my buddy, "I think I've picked up a ladyboy." We stopped and asked her if she was in fact a ladyboy, and she denied it. At this point, I said, "How come you're not talking when I ask you something?" She pulled out a phone and typed something in Thai and showed it to my friend's date. She translated it and said she's just sick and cannot talk. I called it BS and told the ladyboy I cannot take her back as I am straight and I'm not into sword fighting. She continued following us for another block or so, and I made it very clear that I'm not interested. At this point, her feminine expression changed to a very masculine, mad-looking person and yelled out in probably the deepest voice I've ever heard a Thai person speaking, "You have to pay." I need to pay club entrance again, and you know the type of thing to get some money. At this point, not wanting to cause trouble on our first night in Thailand, I gave her 200 baht to leave me alone. She started demanding more and more money, and at this point I told my friend that I will meet him back at the Airbnb and I went for a quick 4-block sprint. I'm sharing this story because I want people to know it's not wise to get too drunk, as you could easily put yourself in a bad situation. Despite the surprising turn of events, our trip to Thailand was unforgettable, and if you're interested, I have more stories to share in the future. Well, obviously I wrote straight back to the guy to let him know that I'll be reading out his story, but I also said, yeah, send us in. I'm always interested in new stories. But yeah, a little bit of a warning there. You know, you have to be careful and a little bit sober if you're picking up new girlfriends, as it were, when you're here. The lady boys really do look like ladies. You know, it's not like in Europe. I won't be derogatory, but let's just say in Thailand here, some of them are very, very beautiful. They actually look like real women. Okay, right, I'm going to go into the last story now. This is the one that I've replaced the one that I deleted from the other guy. It's quite short, but it's interesting because he goes back to 1970, so many decades ago, and it just gives you a feel of nostalgia, this story. Okay, let me share a tale from the Bangkok of 1970. Picture a time when Nana Plaza and Soy Cowboy hadn't claimed their spaces. The go-go bars were tucked away on Phetchaburi Road. Pattaya, a quaint fishing village, boasted Beach Road as its main thoroughfare, adorned with palm and coconut trees and dotted with humble beach houses. One Saturday night in the heart of Bangkok, two buddies from my high school days and I found ourselves in a go-go bar along Phetchaburi Road. Funds were tight, just enough for a round of singers. Seated at a table, we observed the stage performances and the lively dance floor. Amidst the crowd, one girl stood out, radiating an exceptional cuteness I haven't witnessed before. She was our age, with a beautiful body and a beautiful face. This enchanting girl finished dancing with a young American GI before making her way to our table. Her name was Pun, and her warmth and her friendliness made the night memorable. As we conversed with her, a skinny tall kid with blonde hair managed some awkward Thai phrases. Surprisingly, I found myself asking Pun about leaving the bar. To my surprise, she suggested we head to her house where her roommates awaited. With a playful gesture, I confessed my lack of funds by turning my pockets inside out. Pun, embarrassed, brushed my hand away, assuring me not to worry. She approached the bar manager, a man in those pre-Mamasan days, and after a nod of approval, the unthinkable happened. We left the bar, guided by Pun down a side street behind the Go-Go Club. The journey led us through fields, sparse houses, and eventually to Pun's home. Laughter filled the air as we joined her two attractive roommates. Drinks flowed, and my friends disappeared into separate rooms after a while. I found myself on the living room couch with Pun, and the details that followed need not be told here, but it was every young man's dream fulfilled in that one night. As the night unfolded, we shared more laughter and drinks, but eventually the time came to leave. Though slightly faded, the memories of that night have never left me. Pun's extraordinary kindness and the unexpected warmth of that encounter left an indelible mark. That night altered my perspective on Thailand. It transformed into a paradise where love and sweetness filled the air, and for some reason, unexplainable reason, it felt real. Pun turned the world into a magical and charming place in her selfless pursuit of making me happy without any exceptions. Pun unwillingly changed me for the better, leaving an enduring imprint of a night that defined the beauty of human connection. Do you know, I often wonder myself, you know, when you get these stories of these guys who were with bar girls in the 70s and the 80s, what are we now? We're in the 2024, so you're talking probably 50 years ago, around 50 years anyway. And I wonder what happened to a lot of those girls, because obviously, you know, they'd be dancing in go-go clubs very close to military bases. Obviously, he's talking about GIs, young guys. Perhaps she just found him very physically attractive because he would have been a young guy of around 20, and that's why she wasn't interested in, you know, making him pay for anything. But these girls, you know, they get to middle age and old age, and I sometimes wonder what happened to the majority of them. Did they end up getting married to Thai guys? Did they become spinsters? You know, did they have happy lives? I mean, you'd like to think they had happy lives, at least later on in life. You know, you'd like to think they settled down and somebody took care of them, or, you know, they had enough funds to take care of themselves. But that's just me reminiscing a little bit. So, right, it wasn't that short, the upload, was it? About 5-10 minutes shorter than it usually is. Hopefully that won't happen too many times. Right, okay, that's it. Stories are More stories next week. And as always, if you've got a story, send it in. I'll change it. I'll make it anonymous. And you can listen to it right here on Thailandbound. Thanks for listening, guys. And I'll catch you next Saturday.